Welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Jessica Carice, and this space is the place where we talk about seemingly random topics, but in all actuality, they're connected together. And today we have a very special guest. Her name is Arielle Leavitt. She is the podcast host of The Connector. She is a connector. She also has a fantastic networking app to help connect people some more called Ripple. And she also owns a chiropractic and physical therapy practice. Arielle.
I know, it's like a lot. It's like, right? It's like a mouthful. It's like, whoa. So yeah, it's funny. So I was talking to Sam, who we both know.
Yeah.
Good friend of ours. And she was saying like, she's helping me like rebrand myself right now, which is like, aren't we always all rebranding ourselves?
Yes.
We're constantly working on ourselves and redoing this and figuring out the next step. And like, once we get kind of comfortable with like our brand, we're like, okay, and the next, like, where are we going next? And like, when I say the brand, like it's ourselves, right? Like it's who we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I'm working with Sam right now to do that. And she's like, you have your pillars, like you are connected to all these things. And I was like, I am. Yes, that's a common thread of all my businesses and all my things, because when I like tell people, I'm like, oh, I do this and I do that. And sometimes it can feel like scattered brain, right? Do you notice that? Like where you're like, as an entrepreneur, that's your title.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's how you feel too. You're like, I'm an entrepreneur and I have this and this and this.
Yeah.
But they all connect through me, right?
Yes.
They're all me.
Yeah.
So we're working on like figuring out what that whole like umbrella is going to be.
That's nice.
With my businesses underneath it.
Yeah.
Because it's so much fun to like dive into different things as an entrepreneur.
It is.
As like,
it's so fulfilling. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you get to explore these things about yourself. I was thinking about it. I was actually like listening to our episode again that we had.
It was so much fun.
So much fun. It was so many people kept saying, they're like, I love the episode. And I was like, all right, let me re-listen to it because I loved it during the moment. Like, and I was like, maybe I could get more out of it. And I did. And it was great. And I love that it's these, entrepreneur is like the biggest therapy session you'll ever go through in your whole life.
Oh my God. Yes, and yes. Keep going. Keep going. I love it.
Yeah. No, but it's the biggest therapy session. And it's just incredible because it's, you get to, I guess it's only therapy if you really want it to be, right? You could look at it as like this road of frustration and exhaustion and toughness. It's hard. It's, or you could go down and like look at like, well, let me explore myself and let me bring out the best of myself and like what can I really offer to the world?
Yeah.
And I think that's just such a wonderful thing.
It is.
I had this like moment as we're sitting here talking right now. I was just like, oh my gosh, like deja vu, right?
Really?
Yeah. I was like, gosh, this is so good. Like when you get the feeling, it's like right? Like you're like, okay, I'm in the right spot.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier about like kind of tapping into that. And as an entrepreneur, like you get so many different things that people come at you with, like you should do this and you should do that.
Yeah.
And it's how do you discern those things?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, so I have a couple friends who are new launching their businesses, and which is so much fun. And I love like the startup phase of things because it's like this. Yeah. I mean, even when you're in it, it's still the excitement. But there's like no, it's like a new employee, right? You get to like mold them, shape them, figure this out. Like with like other than like a more seasoned employee, like they know the ropes and they might be in their ways a little bit.
Yeah.
So, it's just it's the excitement. So my friends are like in this whole excitement of this phase, and they're getting thrown so many like things at them. And they're like, should I go down this path? And if I go down this path, then like I have to give up this kind of, because then I won't be able to work on that. Or if I go down this path, like that would take over all my time. And it's just constant pivoting. Yes. Right.
It is. It's like micro pivoting every single hour of the day. Like seriously, like
it totally is.
Yeah.
And you want to do the right thing because you want to, and you were like, I want to make money and I want to build this big empire and I want to like serve people and I want to be able to, help them achieve what they want.
Yeah.
And so you're constantly trying to do that, and then you're making these micro pivots throughout the day to make that happen.
Yeah.
But then I think we also lose track of those micro pivots, right?
We do. Absolutely.
Like, it's really all about the journey. It's not about the destination.
Yeah.
Yes, it's nice to get to there, but once you get to there, then what?
Yeah, exactly. We're still like, okay, you got to keep going.
Yeah. So then you're going to fly in your plane, you're going to go travel, you're going to do all these things, which are fantastic. But the reason why we are entrepreneurs is because we want to serve people and help them with their problem.
Yeah.
And that's what lights us up.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the outcome of the outcome of the money.
Yeah.
I mean, the money's nice.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But it really is the excitement of like that inner burn, right?
Yeah.
Like that we feel.
Yeah.
As I'm so excited to, introduce Ripple, right? I'm so excited to like help solve this problem for people that I've been having. And it's funny. I'm sorry, I keep going on. Did you?
I mean, it's like everything you're saying. I 100% agree. Like I 100% agree. There was one question you asked about, like, how do you know what to do? Like when people are just coming at you with all the ideas. And like for me, I don't listen to someone unless I had that thought first.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, because then I look at that like, okay, that's confirmation. Because, you always have a little inkling like, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do this. This seems interesting. And then you sit on it, right? And then you're talking to all these people. And then like kind of like when we were talking about my pronunciation issues and you're like, oh my gosh, listen to a book about Cairo, like, so like that type of thing.
So fascinating.
Yeah.
It is interesting how it comes in through each person, right? Like I notice for me, I have to hear something. I get like this little like lit up moment. And then I sit on that lit up moment. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I marinate it. I'm like, I think this is actually good. And the more I like marinate, and then I get into it. It's like a spark that just builds and builds and builds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then yours is kind of like almost the other way, right? Like you had that thought and then you get confirmation.
Yeah. But the confirmation lights me up. I'm like, okay, yes.
Yeah. So you're like, okay, this is it. This is what I need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's important to follow that lit up feeling.
Yes.
It's that like that moment where you're like, this feels really good. Like this other thing feels easy maybe. And maybe feels
maybe like a short-term fix.
Yes. Like this could be good. This is safe, right? Mm-hmm. This is And it's the feeling of like the unsafe and the excitement and like the figuring it out. Yeah. That's where you're going to make more moves.
Yeah.
And where you're going to find your next connections, I think.
It's scary too sometimes.
Oh my gosh. It's so scary.
Yeah.
It's so scary and so much fun though.
Yeah. It's like an indescribable feeling.
Yeah.
Until you're like, you can't describe it unless you're in it, Like you can't describe these feelings to someone who's never tried to build something massive and build something that aligns with their purpose. They won't get it.
Yeah.
Until they're in it.
So it's interesting. I just feel like I want to talk about this for a second because talking about businesses and like I have a physical therapy and chiropractic office, which I am not the physical therapist or the chiropractor. I'm the owner. So I have a service and I have this, I help people get better, but I'm physically not doing it. Right.
Yeah.
So like I'm hiring the right people. I'm bringing on the right crew. I'm figuring out the right office setting for people to get better.
Yeah.
And problem solving a little bit. Like if people are like, oh, we have this, like they need to go to an orthopedist or they need further help. And then that's where I come in. I step in. I'm like, okay, I know this person. I've seen good results. Like let's get you up there. The insurance, that side of things a little bit. And then I have Ripple, which is a networking app to help people connect and network more simply and efficiently through making introductions faster and remembering where people met at events. And so like that is more, I feel like me, right? Like that's like, that is a piece of me.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like the feedback that I have gotten now at this stage in my whole entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Of the feedback of like, when somebody says to me, like, they're like, kind of like, oh, well, there's like 5 other apps out there that does that. And I don't know, when I go to events, like I use them and then I forget about them. Like, and I've gotten that kind of a lot. And it's interesting. And then I have the other people to me that are like, oh my gosh, I love that idea. I need it. Like, let's do it. And then like they start telling their friends, and then I keep hearing like the ripple effect that keeps happening from it. And it's really fun to see those like two sides, like as an entrepreneur and the two different feelings, because some people think entrepreneur, you have to do everything, right? Or you have to like, you are the business.
Yeah.
And then there's entrepreneurial where like you're not the business. You have other people like, you know, that do these services for you.
Yeah.
Right. There's sorry, I'm just going in this whole area of like, of this fun of entrepreneurship and this next phase that I'm in for me, where I'm at right now in my life.
Yeah.
And seen both sides of it. And I don't know, it's just fascinating because I just had this thing happen yesterday. That's why this is all fresh. And then it's fun hearing the feedback, and I'm not upset with it. You know, some people might be upset, like, oh my gosh, like, you know, like it's hurtful or disappointing, or it's like a no, right? Yeah. Like you're reaching those no's, and you think about all the other entrepreneurs ahead of us that have had those no's, like Einstein, right?
Yeah.
Or like, you know, or like the disappointments, or they're building something and then it fails, and they try and they keep going and going and going because they know what they have is good. And yeah. But then it's also, sorry. Okay. I'm on this
keep going.
because it's like, no, because I'm like, I want you to, you know, like I'm on this like, but it's also figuring out of like what, you know, like we know sometimes like in ourselves, like we feel like we have a good product as an entrepreneur, and like, it's not always a good product. I hate to say it, but it's not always good, right?
Yeah.
So when do you call it quits, right? When is the time to call that thing that you keep pushing quits? Because maybe you've pivoted, and it's just not the right thing.
Yeah. You know, I think that's definitely an art.
Yeah.
It's definitely an art. I think, or maybe at least from what I've seen, I think just as long as you don't go bankrupt. You know, there's the people who really hit the verge of bankruptcy. They hit the verge of bankruptcy. But if you go bankrupt, you might, you got to figure out what you're doing, bro. Like, you can't let your family life fall apart. But I think it definitely varies for each person. Like when you're trying. And then, I don't know, I think I kind of look at, like, I'm starting to look at the Bible, like there's business tips from the Bible, or there's a whole book, I think, Business Secrets of the Bible, something like that. And one of the things that I really look at is what I'm doing producing fruit.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
Right. So like with your Ripple app, if you're getting users, you're producing fruit. Right?
Yeah.
If you don't have any users, it's not producing fruit. And so when you have fruit, you can look at the feedback like, okay, yeah. And also, like what you're mentioning, you have one group where they're like, this is amazing. And you have another group that's like, oh, I just use it and then I forget it. Well, that's not your fruit, right? That might be some weeds you got to prune out.
Yeah. And I think like, I mean, obviously like my hope is like after this gets more momentum, like I'm sure Facebook and Instagram, right, still have this issue even.
Yeah, exactly.
And especially Instagram, because I know a lot of people are like, I don't really want to go over to Instagram. I love Facebook and I love the ease of it, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm on that.
TikTok.
Yeah, that's very true, right? And then over time, people are like, the more influence, like, well, more people are moving over to Facebook. Yes. So we do need to go to that direction.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. But I love what you just said. And I think that's a really good thing for business owners to really, you know, you're constantly doing a pulse check, right? Like, what's happening here? Are people signing up? Like, let me reassess. And if not, okay, we do need to pivot, or we need to like throw it out in the trash altogether and start over. And figure out a different solution.
Yeah. And then the other thing that comes to mind is, did you really give it your all? Because that's also another thing. Like people could be doing running in circles, but it's like, okay, did you ask for help? Did you do did you do research? Because, you know, some people just get stuck in their own ways, right? So did you do research? Have you done any courses? Like, have you really evaluated yourself? Like, what are you not strong in? Maybe you need to hire someone to help you where you're not strong. So it's like, did you really give it your all as well?
Totally. Yeah. It's so fascinating, this whole entrepreneurial. I keep talking about entrepreneurial. It's just like, you know, you talk about what's happening in your life right now. And it's funny, like as you watch other entrepreneurs grow and change their brand sometimes. And sometimes like as they get married and have kids and they start bringing that into their, or they pivot off and then they start offering a whole maternity line or whatever it is, right? Because of the influences of our worlds that happen.
Yeah.
And and it kind of opens up your eyes more. And then you start to, get into that. And it's interesting, actually. I'm going to talk about community for a second. I'm going to pivot off into that.
Yeah.
That pivot for a second.
Yeah.
But I was talking to my brother, and they recently had a baby, him and his wife, and they're saying like they've lived in that neighborhood for 5 years now, or he's lived, they've lived in it for about 5 years now.
Yeah.
And they never really had any friends in the neighborhood.
Oh,
and they live in a big city, so it's kind of hard also to make friends.
Okay.
But now since they've have a baby, they're like, oh my gosh, we're making so many friends.
That's so funny. That's really funny.
And it's just because we look for community of similar things, right? You're looking for, friends with similar interests, right? When you go into a new place or when you move or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see how they're like, just booming and starting in this community. I mean, they've only had the child or kid or a baby, like, a few months, but in that few months, because they've asked like neighbors in Facebook Marketplace or whatever it is, or these community or next door or whatever, these apps are, where they can go on and say, hey, I'm looking for this. And somebody's like so gracious. And they're so like, people want to help other people.
Yeah,
they really do.
Yeah.
And as humans, we really do look for community. We need to be a part of community.
Yeah.
To thrive. It feeds our soul. It
does.
Even if you're an introvert, you still need to like feel that belonging.
Yes. And it's so funny because for myself, most of my life, I felt, actually almost all my life, I felt like not fitting in or, in various environments, I always felt like that. And when I made the decision, like, okay, I'm taking this entrepreneurship serious. Oh my God. I'm like, wow, I've met so many people I can really connect with and share all my raw thoughts. And they're like, me too, And I'm like, oh my God, I thought I was going to have to go through life alone,
Yeah. And most entrepreneurs, I think, like they start a business and they have to do it by themselves and they want to like, not look too embarrassed. Like, I'm trying to figure this out. But and we're all here to help each other. I mean, there's some people that maybe are not so generous as others, but it's okay. You'll find the ones that are.
Exactly.
And you keep going down that like yellow brick road.
Yeah.
And it will keep like forming in front of you the more you ask or the more you want for help, the more you want help, or the more you are generous in helping others and kind of like saying yes to things. And like that's something that you do so well. It's like, yeah, I'm in, let's go. Let's just,
This has literally been my year of yes. Like just saying yes, like, yes, sure. Yeah, I'll show up. Yeah. It's been incredible how much my life has changed. Like our lives have changed just from having a year of yes, like, sure, let's try it out.
Yeah.
And also one of the things I've stopped doing was judging or trying to predict things, trying to predict people's behavior, trying to predict, it's a sense of control. So like I've been saying a lot of yeses and trying to let go of a lot of control. Some things are easier to let go than others, right? And then even with that, I've had lots of pleasant surprises. Lots of pleasant surprises with some of the relationships I've had where like the old me would have been like, no, nah, but I've been staying open. And I'm like, oh, wow, this person really came through for me. It's just been so incredible.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that because I've like finally let go of like the how this is going to happen. Or like I like see my end vision and I really want to get there. And like, and some people it works for them. Like they're very, but when you kind of surrender over and just allow like, like your connection with the universe or God or like, whatever your higher power is, you surrender over to that and just allow, because like they always like show those pictures on Instagram or whatever, like, your vision is like this flower and then God's vision is like this bouquet. Right.
I literally had that same concept, that same idea last night. Like literally talking to my husband on the couch. I'm like, babe, like God is so massive. Like, what do I my human mind can't even imagine certain things, like what am I doing trying to project my own limitations on what the thing, the higher power energy, God created this massive earth, massive universe, massive space. What am I?
Yeah.
Who am I to put a limit?
Yeah. And
on
our
what's
limits
possible?
are so narrow. And
Yeah.
I mean, we can only dream up what we know.
Yeah.
Right? Because we are only what we are created of, like memories and visions and things and what we see and what we've experienced. We're a creation of everything that we've experienced.
Yeah.
And
there's so much more outside of that.
yeah. And it's really fun. Like I never thought I was going to be thrown into the entrepreneurial world. Like I think this is hysterical, but like we were driving in the car. My mom's asking my brother and I, like, so what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
And my brother goes, I want to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, what is that word? Like, that's a long word. I don't even know how to spell it, like, let alone say it. What is that? So that he tells me what it is. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I don't want that. I want a 9-to-5 job. And that's what I said. And I'm like,
so funny.
Yeah. And God laughed and was like, that's funny. You're not going to be a 9-to-5 person because that's not who you are. That's who you think you are.
Wow.
And so I was thrown into the physical therapy and chiropractic world, had to learn it, figure it out. I didn't know anything I was doing. Like, I just like, they'd be like, oh, and this insurance, da, 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 da. And I'm like, yes. Okay. So the BI limits on the, on the LOP and the thing. And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm saying, but I figured it out. Right.
How'd you get thrown into it?
Okay. So my father was going through a bad breakup with his ex-business partner. He's a chiro. My dad's a chiro, and they had a physical therapy rehab together, the two of them. And unfortunately, there was some money stolen and things not so great. The secretary and him, and there were cahoots and all this stuff. And so my dad was under a lot of stress for a couple of years and trying to recover and rebuild a practice and all these things. And I started working with him about 3 years prior to him, unfortunately, having a stroke. And then I took over the practice.
Oh, wow.
Thinking I was going to just kind of keep things going until he came back. And because he was still trying to figure out, like, obviously how to regrow this practice and figure out how to, and it's a lot to do.
It is.
And so I was getting ready to graduate college, and I was just like, didn't think I was really going to be in the medical field because I saw how stressful it was for my dad. But I just kind of continued like doing it and figuring it out. And I was like, okay, like I knew how to bill and schedule patients. Like I was like, how hard can this be to manage some people? Yeah. It's a whole different ballgame.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and like figuring out personalities, and we had so much turnover, and I couldn't treat the patients. I'm just like trying to figure this out. I'm trying to take us out of the red and put us into the black, and just trying to keep something at least alive for my dad to hopefully come back to.
Yeah.
And at this time, he's completely retired at this point, but it's been 12 years, and it has been really exciting and a whole learning curve and like figuring it out. And then we had to move the office. Like, I mean, there's so many challenges. Just when I thought like we were kind of like, I was like, okay, I can breathe for a second. Like I have somebody coming. I have the therapist. I have the staff. I have the whatever.
Yeah.
And I have like the patients coming in, and things are kind of smooth. And it's like, oh no, like let me throw a curveball at you. Like here's something else. And it's just like, that's what it is. That's what entrepreneurship is. So now I've like learned to kind of, okay, like I know there's always going to be moving and changing things, and that's just what it is. So you lean into it.
Yeah.
And the more you lean into it, the better like everything is. Mm-hmm. And the less stress you're going to carry, because it is going to be stressful. Like I have people that depend on me for their livelihood. Right. And so like, I can say stress kills, unfortunately.
It does.
And the least stressed you can be, and just like, go with the flow, and know like you're going to have days where it's just going to be bad. Yeah. Like we had days where the whole day pretty much cancels, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, and it's weird. It's like someone's sick, then someone's moving, whatever it is, right? Yeah. Like it happens. And I don't know, it's just fascinating because it's like, just lean into it and just go with it and say, great, okay, so we're going to have like an admin day then, or we're going to do this, or we're going to pivot, or like, you know what, forget it, let's all have fun. Yeah. And if we can just have fun and lead with that levity, it's so much better. Yeah. And it maybe recharges everybody. And then when we come back the next day, everybody's more recharged for all those patients or whatever it may be. And I've really learned to kind of like lean more into that. Or
That's
if
excellent.
it all fails and all goes downhill, and great, everybody will be okay. They'll find other jobs. You'll figure out something else. Life will go on.
Yeah.
And releasing that was a huge curve for me in my business. And I noticed my business like doubled and tripled.
Wow.
Which is insane. This is during COVID, which was like when I finally like got that message.
Wow.
And I was just like, Arielle, like, let go. Like, and I wasn't like uptight about everything. I wasn't like looking at the books. It's just kind of
like you get tense.
But I was like stressed out when we would have a day of like no patients. I'd be like, oh my gosh, okay, make the phone calls. Go do this. Like, and I'm like holding that tension, and nothing can flow when there's so much tension.
Yes.
And then so now I've saged the office, and I'll go around the office all like, all right, we're no patient. We need to get some patients in here. Like, let's sage. We'll sage.
I love it.
And then like 2 seconds later, the phone will ring and a new patient will come in. I'm like, okay, we're clearing the energy. We're moving along. Like, let's get it going.
I love that so much. Oh my God. I love that so much. I love it so much. It was really because like, one, I definitely made that pivot too, where like when my weeks get so packed, I would be like freaking out in the inside. Like, oh my God. But the thing is, like, I would always make it through, you know? So I'm like, okay, there's no point of me stressing out just because I have a busy week. I always have a busy week. It's the normal for me. What am I freaking out for, right? So I'm like, okay, let me switch from I have to do this to like, I get to do this. This is fun. I'm so grateful for this. That was a huge shift. And it gave me so much, even more energy to like still have my really packed week, but have so much energy for it too, and showing up with excitement. And then the other thing I learned is like, you have to lead with your spiritual stuff first before any other physical thing will follow through. So like when you say that you sage the office and everyone recharges, like that's fantastic, because I'm learning more and more and more people, they start their day with their spiritual stuff, or they lead with the spiritual stuff. And then it's like all the other goodness just follows through after that. And then like whenever there's any hiccups, it's fantastic, right? Because you got to get rid of something for something new to come anyways, you know? So
yeah. I'm not going to lie. Like I still have my days sometimes where I'm just like, I get a little stressed and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I just have to remind myself, and I'm like, no, Arielle, like it's okay.
Yeah.
Life will be okay.
Yeah. It's like the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah.
So it's like 80% of the time, that's fantastic. But 20% of the time, you got days, you know, but it's okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to touch on that thing, that the gratitude that you just mentioned. And it is so big, and it makes such a difference. When I first started writing checks for like, you know, the employees and different things, I'd be like, oh my gosh, okay, we only have this much in the bank account, and I have to do this, and I have to figure out this. And I'm like, okay, like, or like, oh my gosh, but they worked an extra 30 minutes and they shouldn't have, and that was lazy time, and like, you know, you get in your head, and like, and then I started changing it, my mindset. And I said, I'm so grateful I can write this check. And so every check I write, even to this day, I just am like, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful I'm able to write this check, and whatever amount it may be. And it just changes my whole feeling towards that. And it's gratitude, right? Because I'm grateful for that employee. I'm grateful for that, you know, advertising I was able to do, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And living with gratitude is huge, because we're constantly having these negative thoughts in our head.
Yes.
And they're not, you know, supposed to be negative. It's our ego protecting us, right? Just looking out for us.
Yeah, the ego likes what's safe and familiar, even if it runs you into the ground.
Exactly. It's just there to protect us. Like, hey, there could be some danger over there. Let's, you know, whatever. But it's just like, okay, and it's acknowledging it. Okay, I see you, ego. But I'm not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
And I want to like, move past you.
Yeah.
And I can feel in my gut that this is a better decision.
Yeah.
And it's listening to that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not always in your gut. Sometimes it's like, you know, just like a feeling of like, I don't know, jitters or something.
Yeah,
you know, like some people
I definitely get the gut feeling. I get the gut feeling, but then sometimes I get like a warm sensation, like here.
Yeah. Right? It's different for people, or it's different moments like that it happens.
Yeah.
Which is really fun. And Yeah, it's an incredible experience to be an entrepreneur.
It is.
And to go through this life. Like, right? Like we get to excuse me, dive into like all these like different avenues we can go. We can play it safe
Yeah.
and or we can like decide to go down the road. And I've definitely changed my thing a little bit more so this year is okay, so have you read this? There's a book called The Untethered Soul by
I've heard of that.
yeah.
I've heard, babe, write that down. The Untethered Soul.
And so it's a great book by oh my gosh, Singer is his last name. I can't think of his first name at the moment. I want to say Bruce or Daniel or something like that. And I it will come to me in a minute.
Yeah.
But at least I got his last name good. So that's good. We're good on that. But he's written some other, like the Surrender Experiment, or he's written some other ones like that. But The Untethered Soul is the most recent book I just read about it. But it's like, it's pretty much surrendering over. And it's also just like, we are who, we're the images that make us up, right? Like we're the experiences that we had that make us.
Yeah.
And especially like in very young ages, we're imprinted on, right? And that's all we know, and that's what we learn, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
But we are just like a spirit here having a human experience.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. It's like all these things that we know, but like when you hear it sometimes differently, it changes our look on it or where we're at in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we go through that, and I've just kind of just started to go through that a little bit more of just like, all right, I'm going to have this experience and I'm going to be more present. And it's really about being present, because how many times do we look at like the future of like, I can't wait to get here and then I'm going to be happier. I can't wait for this to happen. And then this is going to be great. And I'll be able to do this, this, and this. And it's really just being here. The more we can be here, the more like we're fulfilled.
Yeah.
Because this is it. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, 5 years from now, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And we used to be, I think, trained like a society is like, we when you get to retirement, that's when your life starts, the golden years and all this other stuff. But I look at my dad. My dad was 2 years away from retirement, and he had the stroke, and his life completely changed. And your health is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, as we're healthy now, like that's when to live.
Yeah.
And maybe like, like carpe diem or whatever it is. Right.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just more of like, you want to live like responsibly a little bit,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's living with intention and what really lights you up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at in my life at this time right now.
I love it so much.
And I mean, I've constantly continued to get there and work on it. Yeah. But for me, for relationships, we're like, I'm going to go into relationships. This is like a tell-all. Like, I feel like you're like Barbara Walters or whoever, I don't know, whoever the people are like that.
Arielle, it's not even like I'm probing you with questions. It's just like, it's just letting it flow. And I love it. So yes, let's get you open the door. We're there. Let's keep going.
Podcasting is therapy also, you guys. It truly is, right? Yeah, like it's therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like in my relationships, I've always been like, I just want to get to that moment in a relationship where like everything is good and it's like the person loves you and it's just like, you're on this mutual understanding and it's, for me, I've never always been in the moment of a relationship. And so, and it's funny is that everybody has their thing, right? Like, some people might be, their thing was with money, right? They always might have this like battle with money. They might have this battle with like their family and their parents, or not want to say battle. It's just like a constant, continuous struggle throughout your life.
Yeah.
And like, so mine has been relationships, and mine has just been like, I have never been able to get into the right relationship. And like, some people might say like, well, like, isn't like that with a lot of people? And I'm just more like, I think it's how I approach relationships. And I approach them and I want to like jump like all in with a relationship. I'm like, I meet this person and I'm like, great, we're work. Like, let's just why is it not so simple? Like,
Yeah.
like, oh, you're not on the same page as me. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to go from 0 to 60. Like, you don't want to get married tomorrow. Like, I thought we wanted to get married tomorrow.
Yeah.
And like spend every second together and do all these things.
Yeah.
Because I'm just so excited. And forget about those like moments of like, no, we just have to like see, do we even like each other? Like, do I like spending time with you? Do I like,
Yeah.
let you court me, let me court, whatever, like the whole process is.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until this year I met somebody, and this person, I was like, oh, we're never going to be together. Like, this is never going to work out. Right. Like, I'm like, not a chance.
Yeah.
But the person was interested. And I was like, you know what? Like, I appreciate their sense of humor and who they are. And I like, there's some sort of attraction there to like foundation.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'll humor myself with this, right? Like, okay.
Humor myself.
Yeah. Like, I haven't dated in a while at this point. Like, I just got so wrapped up in like my businesses and things. I forgot. I was like, oh, I have to date. Like, not have to, but I was like, I totally forgot about dating, which is so funny because I'd been so focused on it for so long. Yeah. And then I decided, I was like, I'm going to not. And then I did not focus on it for like a good 2 years at least. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's been like 2 years since I've been on a date. I probably should go on a date. That's probably a good thing to do. So I meet this person and I'm like, all right, we'll see. And so I start going on these like little activities with him.
Activities.
Well, he's a GC, so he's a general contractor.
Okay.
So he was working on a project for me. And he needed me to go pick out the tiles and different things. It was actually for my mother. It's a whole long story, but we won't get into the whole craziness of it now. But the part of it is, I was like, okay, I enjoy hanging out with this person. I'm enjoying this. But this was like, I'm going to just be in the moment. I don't want to think about the future. And people would be like, you need to think about the future with him. Like, where is this going? What's happening with this?
Interesting.
And I was like, I understand your concern because of my age. And like, obviously I do want kids and all these other things. And you don't want me to waste my time. But at the same time, I'm just enjoying like kind of also learning about myself.
Yeah.
That's like with everything in life, right? We're constantly looking back and like, what am I learning from this for myself and how can I grow?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
And I think when we go approach situations like that, then that's where we like are able to really tap into that, like how to move forward.
Yeah.
And to become greater in your next path of life. Like the yellow brick road, I keep saying, that keeps unfolding, right?
Yeah.
Then like the next block will unfold and the next block and the next block. And so, so we kind of semi-dated, not dated. I don't know what, like I was in denial. I don't know what you want to call it. Just kind of kept saying like, no, we're like, we're not, I don't know, we're filling it out because I really wasn't sure about this person. We're literally like, I would say from two different worlds or planets, like two different planets and with how different we are.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, it's never going to work,
Yeah.
And so in that, but then I was like, but our foundation, our core values are
the same,
totally
right?
in line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, I see you. I see what this whole thing is about, what this is happening.
Yeah.
And so then I just kind of kept following it. And at the one point, there's this time that he has some stuff he has to finish up and, kind of like work on with his stuff. He's not totally ready and it's okay. And I was like, great. Like, I understand that. And that's why I think I also didn't allow myself to totally like jump in with like deep dive into the, deep end.
Yeah.
And whatever it was, like I kind of like listened to that gut feeling a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And we're very good friends and we have great conversations and we still are in each other's lives. And if the time is right, great. It would be fantastic. And if not, then it's okay. We learn so much from each other.
Yeah.
And it's really just like fascinating because like I've kind of come to that point where I'm like ready to like break that pattern with myself. And it's what we all are doing, right? You shared on my podcast with like that you're breaking those patterns with your family a little bit and yourself and how you want to like interact with others. Yeah. And it's just fun. It is fun. This is like our favorite topic. Like,
it's fun and terrifying at the same time, Arielle, because there's so many levels to breaking those patterns. Like for myself this week, like I get images in my head to just kind of, it represents like what I feel like I'm going through, where I feel like I'm at the point where I'm breaking so many patterns where I feel like there's like this little inside picture of a little person inside of me that's like shattering, and I'm like, ah, and wants to break free, like the real me wants to break out type of thing. Like, so it's like I get kind of scared. I'm like, okay, I'm breaking all these patterns. And it's like, I used to have certain motivations where I'm like, oh my God, I have to call this person like every week at this time. But it's like, wait, they don't call me though. Maybe I'm not going to put so much emphasis on it anymore. We'll talk when we talk, like to your point, you know, if we talk, great. If not, it's okay. But then it's like those patterns, it keeps going and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And then it's like, I find myself, it's this weird balance where I don't have like a lot of attachments, to concepts and ideas and attachments to how I should act towards someone because of whatever history we have, you know? So like a lot of that is shedding away. That now it's like, okay, so those behaviors are going away. I feel kind of raw right now. What does this mean? You know, like, and to your point, we're talking about like the ego, and it's like, that's what I feel like. I feel like my ego is really, really shattering.
Yeah.
And it's like, who do I talk to about this? You know, because there's just so many layers and levels to breaking patterns. And every single time I think I'm done, another wave of patterns come to my attention. I'm like, oh my God, I thought I was good. Like, like it's the most, I don't know, fascinating journey.
It really is. And one thing also, another thing I've learned from this whole relationship that has like, I do in business, or I've learned in business and different things that I'm applying, like how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yes.
Right. And so the space, like I started like not holding on so tight. Right.
Yeah.
Like I would hold on so tight to these relationships with these guys in a way, or whatever it is, like thinking like, I know this is going to work. It's going to be it. You know, like holding on tight. And the more I've like not, especially with this relationship, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the thing. Or even in business, right? Like the less I hold on to like the day that falls apart, like the more the next day or later that day, like abundance just flows in.
Yeah.
And it's just allowing that energy to flow. Energy needs to flow.
Yeah.
It's the only way. We're energy beings. We live in energy. Everything is energy.
Yeah.
And if it can't flow, like we're going to just stay stagnant in the stagnant pond. Like I think of an image of that comes to mind is like that moss or the algae that's on top of the pond that like in those beautiful pictures of the lilies and the, you know, like, and it's going to stay like that if you don't allow for some openness or some like breeze, right?
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
So, and like you're doing and we're all doing it.
Yeah.
And I think it's becoming a lot more aware these days.
It is.
And I think it's more and more people, or I or you, or we're just finding each other, right? Like
It's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know if it was just never talked about. I mean, I think our parents' generation, everything was like fine. Like I was talking to a friend about this the other day. Like everything was fine. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's good. Fine. It's fine. We're fine. Fine.
Yeah. Or for me, it was like, this is just how it is.
Oh yeah.
The same issues, same cycles. There was no change. It was kind of like status quo. Like we would move, but everything would still be the same.
Yeah. And now I think our generation or so, or this new generation, that this time, maybe after 2020, I think people got a lot more aware of it and started talking about all these things.
Yeah.
And started becoming more open and started becoming more open to these conversations.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Yeah.
So I
and
feel like people had a chance to stop.
Yeah.
They had a chance to stop all the things they were doing, the commutes, the stress, right? So people were just sitting home.
Yeah. And I actually really, for me, it was a great time. I got to like really live in the moment.
Same.
And pause, right? And
Yeah.
I feel very blessed because I know a lot of other people did not have that.
Yeah.
You know, my mom and I cooked every day. We just went on walks and got to have this moment. And I remember thinking, I'm like, I want to just savor this because I know this will pass. This too shall pass type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's like with everything in life, right? because we're in it, and this too shall pass. Like it will go on. Like if you're having a hard time or whatever it is, like it's going to move, and allow it to move.
Yeah.
Because the thing on the other side is just so much bigger and greater and better and more fun and all the things that are just gonna,
Yeah.
It's so fascinating, this whole world. And like
incredible.
Yeah, because like our souls really don't know, like they just know like love and light, right? Like that's really what we all know.
Yeah.
And then when we've learned through our lives, we learn fear, shame, guilt, all these things, stress. Like these are learned things.
They are.
And those are things that like end up having a bigger like I want to say impact, or just they take over our lives a little bit more, or thoughts.
Yeah. The thing that's crazy though is like, let's say like I have one of those weeks where I'm just talking to a whole wide range of people. And sometimes I feel like because I got rid of a lot of stressors, right? And the context of how I look at life is so wide now, where it's hard to relate to people that are still feeling in the trenches, right? Where it's kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. It's such like a little subtle thing where like, I understand what they're going through. Maybe it's because I'm a recovering empath. I don't know. But it's like, I understand what they're going through, and I feel what they're going through. But it's like, I feel like because I'm not going through that, we can't connect. It's like a really subtle thing I'm trying to describe. It's very, very, very subtle. But it's like, I feel like I can't connect because I can't get down into the trenches with someone anymore, where I used to be that person. Like if you were sad, I'll be sad with you.
I totally get that. I feel you on that. Yeah. And now it's like, you're like, okay, it's not great for me all the time to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot to carry.
Yeah.
Because then you're carrying around everybody else's like baggage and emotions. And you're like, but that's not really like how I feel.
Yes.
Or want to feel.
Yes.
But I'm like now doing this because obviously you feel for somebody.
Yes.
And yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
And it's like moving away from that. And you're not like, I'm not trying to be mean. Like, I don't want to not help you. But there's ways to help somebody, or to be, obviously empathetic for somebody too. Also like in the way of not also getting, that empathic feeling where you're like, I'm in this with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I totally get that.
Yeah. So it's like, I find it hard to connect because I can't be like that anymore with people.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's something I'm processing. And I don't know. Yeah, I'm still processing
that you're
it.
not feeling you're able to be empathetic. I'm not empathetic. Not empathetic. That's not the word.
It's a different word. Yeah. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I get it. I do get it because like I feel that way with like, here's a story that as we're talking about this. Because we're really young at the time. And I was like 12 or something, and I was having a sleepover. We were not even a sleepover, at a friend's house. And, at that time, like it's teenager year or middle school years.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're just I was homeschooled. So we were like late bloomers a little bit. So it was like, all of a sudden I was like, ooh, that, Sally likes, Joey. And oh my gosh, like Joey keeps teasing Sally. And like, so that was all happening.
Yeah.
And like, it was very innocent. And this kid, I'm going to use him Joey, I guess, whatever, name him. But he kept like, teasing my cousin, who he like, now looking back on, obviously he was interested in her and like had a crush. But like my cousin was like, oh my gosh, like, he's so annoying. And I was like, oh, so if he's annoying, like, why don't we do something about it? Like, but I didn't realize like the social cue of like,
yeah, the social cue. Yeah.
Like we're at that stage of our lives. We're like, because I wasn't, I guess, really interested in dating at that point. Like I was 12 or 11 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
At that time of my life, I was just like, let's have fun with all of our friends. And I did everything as a community also growing up.
Yeah.
So it was just like, plus like I was like looked at these guys as like brothers. So I was like, oh, it's just like an annoying brother, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
doing
yeah,
this.
yeah.
I didn't realize that they were having a thing. Oops, Arielle. I've definitely matured since then. I got the social cues on that.
Yeah.
But I could feel like, obviously she was annoyed. You could feel that energy, like you're tapped into that energy. And so at one point I was just like annoyed that he kept like bothering us because we're trying to have girl time, right?
Yeah,
And the guys are off running and hunting and whatever. I don't know, hunting, but like, playing the games outside. I lived in Boca. We did not hunt, but I'm talking about hunting, but manly things. They're doing manly things.
Yeah.
And I go up to him and I'm like, just leave us alone. And I like hit him in his chest, like not hard, right? I'm 12 and I'm like, stop it.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because then I look back at that and I looked at that. And then afterwards, like everybody's like, what? Where did that come out of? Like, Arielle, you never do that. You've never hit anybody. That's the only time I've ever hit somebody, by the way, for the record. But, like what possessed you to do that? Like, what the heck? And I was like, I think I was just feeding off of everybody's emotions and it was too much for me, right? I didn't realize and like know how to release that. And the only way I knew how to release it was go up to him and be like stop, and put a stop to this whole thing. I wasn't going to hit my cousin, like she, or whatever. But like, I felt like he was a bigger guy. Like, I'm like, it was a playful whatever. It's totally fine. I think he thought it was funny, honestly. And, but it is these motions that we take on from other people and we take them on for ourselves. And it's like kind of like checking in with ourselves. Like, is this my feeling or is this somebody else's feeling?
Yeah.
And if it's okay, this is somebody else's, and that's okay. And you can carry that with them for a little bit and have that feeling with them. But then now I need to release this feeling of theirs and put that off to the side. And now I need to like go back to my own source, my own who I am. And that might be whatever it may be. Like for me, it's yoga. Like when I go to yoga, I can get centered. I can kind of like release everything else and release like, I'm around a lot of people all day.
Yeah.
And what I've carried from them and their emotions or their stuff. And it's time for me to release that. It's like my meditation.
Yeah.
And because at the same time, I do want to be like, like you said, like I want to feel with them. Like I want to go through that feeling and that's okay. As humans, we should, I think, sit in that sometimes people need that at that time.
Yeah.
And then, working on separating that or so.
Yeah.
So
I think that's probably where I'm at because it's like, I tend to be extreme. So I'm either in it or I'm not in it at all. I'm not in it at all. And so like, I think for me, like if I do have any type of, I guess, empathetic moments with someone, I need to figure out, okay, how do I really get rid of that so that I don't absorb it myself and I get back centered. Yeah. I think, cause I was on a call last night and there was a lot going on. And then like, I know definitely some of it rubbed off on me. And so it's like trying to shake that last night and even carried over to this morning.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's like, okay. And I knew there was some effect on the call. I knew there was something there. So it's like, okay, I don't like feeling like this. I don't like taking on the energy and I don't like the thoughts that come with that. So it's like, at the same time, I know I can't shut myself off from people. So it's like, how do you balance that out?
So I guess my question is do you feel like you were helping by being there? Do you feel like you're contributing? Or
I did.
Okay.
I did. But it's funny because like the lady, she had lost her husband and that's like one of my worst fears.
Yeah.
Just because like with my husband, he's like the only person I really felt like unconditional love from. Yeah. Right. So it's like a trigger to like, okay, I still probably have that fear deep down inside, and then, I don't know, it made me off. It made me off,
So one thing I've learned from my I had a very easy childhood, but yet I've done so many years of therapy. Like, it's so funny to me, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, but in the sense of like therapy, like self-growth, like
Yeah.
my mom is a constant seeker. I love it. So like I become a constant seeker. And some of the years that I've like learned and the techniques that I've learned of things that I've done, which have then have helped me through like tough times or situations or stuff like this.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you really feel into that emotion, if you go into it, like in another time, maybe journal about it, get into that fear, get into that whole, like it's sitting in you someplace, right?
Yeah.
And then so kind of like identifying where that feeling is, and then just like releasing it. Because once it's released out of you, it's gone. I mean, there might be another layer that comes up of something else.
Yeah.
But at least that whole feeling is going to dissipate because it's somewhere sitting in you, right? It's like this, like you're carrying around like a little, like, you know, your pocketbook or something.
Yeah.
You know, like
it's like a little pea seed somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the more we can like get into our emotions and then release them and work through that. And so I'm constantly working on that, you know, working through my emotion, working through that, because obviously it happens to me too. And so then I'm like, okay, let me feel into this. Let me, instead of just like wanting to bypass it or move past it or just like ignore it, right? Like I feel you, I see you, but I'm not going to deal with you today. Like,
or like, you're not really real.
Yeah.
That's why I tell myself like, no, it's not real.
It's never going to happen. It's not, you know, it's not a thing, right? Like but it's this fear and this emotion that is in you somehow.
Yeah.
And once you release it, then next time it happens, it's going to be like maybe a tenth or not even there of whatever it may feel.
Yeah.
And then, and then when you approach that situation next time, you'll approach it with a whole different feeling and not like a different mindset, because it's not really the mindset. It's the feeling and the emotion. That's what it is, instead of, because a lot of people think like, oh, I have to set my mindset to this, and that's wonderful, but then you're ignoring the big elephant in the room type of thing. That's how I feel. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
You know, you're ignoring it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's important to like not ignore that elephant.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah. You know, as you're talking, I think like, I think it's probably still tied to my childhood, of course.
isn't it for everybody?
Everything. You know, like one of my worst fears of loss, right? Like losing someone I love dearly. And I think it's probably tied to my parents' divorce when I was a kid, for example. You know, I was very attached to my father. And then one day, and then next day he's not there, you know. So that's probably where it stems from. Thank you.
Totally.
Say podcast or therapy.
We're connecting the dots right
Yes,
now.
we are. We are. Yeah.
But yeah. So then if you go into that emotion, right? Like, and you really sit with that. So it's really not the fact that the fear of losing your husband. It's the fear of like, I guess not a fear, or it's the feeling of your dad leaving.
Yeah, I probably never processed. Girl, you about to make me cry. I probably never processed that feeling of losing my father as a kid, like not living in the house anymore, you know, because he was one of the people I felt I was connected with. Like I never really felt connected to my mom like that. And then my siblings never, like I'm talking about like real young, like 3, 4, 5 years old, maybe 4 years old. Where I felt like my daddy was my sense of safety, and so those type of similar feelings that my husband gives me, you know. So yeah.
And it says,
I think that was it. Oh my God, don't want to cry.
No, feel into it. This is the moment you're supposed to feel. And on a podcast, but no, feel into it, because like it's getting into that emotion, right?
Yeah.
Because you've never really felt it.
No, I didn't. Oh my God, Arielle, what are you doing to me right now?
We need to get you a tissue. But
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's feeling into that and really acknowledging it, because how many times have you wanted to bury it and just ignore it and not look at it?
Time. Yeah. Like, no, it didn't affect me. No.
Yeah. And this feeling and this like whole like feeling you're feeling right now might last you a couple more days, and as you grieve it and process it, you might just be starting crying for no reason. You're like, why am I crying?
Yeah.
But it's your body just releasing this feeling that has been sitting in you for so long.
And I never allowed myself to ever process it. 'Cause I
Yeah.
was always processing everyone else's life. I was processing, my mom's pain, processing my sister's pain, processing everyone's pain. Thank you, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Processing everyone else's pain. And I never allowed myself to process things. And it's like, I say like all these patterns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, that call last night, just seeing that woman in so much pain, like living out my worst fear, it like really did a number
Scary.
on me.
Yeah. It's totally scary. It's totally valid.
Yeah.
Like and just now allowing yourself to be like, okay, that was her experience. That's not going to be mine.
Yeah.
And if it is, God will figure out a different, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But it's really like, it's only going to be a fear or happen really if you put your attention on it and then like kind of like almost like, I want to say like manifest it, right? Like that's that word.
Yeah.
But you're releasing that, right? So now it's not even like a possibility.
Yeah.
It's not even available anymore.
Yeah.
It's not on the radar. So,
Yeah.
which is the biggest work we can do it for ourselves, I feel like, is release those things. So then it's just not even a thought. It's not even present. And we're not available. And that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. It was so like magical, like, to like have that moment. And it's just processing all these things.
Yeah.
It's really cool as human beings to be able to do this.
Yeah. Thank you.
And think about how many other people you're probably able to help with just like
I think
sharing.
it's like the first time I cried on my podcast. Literally, I think it's the first time.
Can I just say how adorable this is that you got a real handkerchief instead of not a tissue? Like this is like a fancy handkerchief. Like,
Thank you.
oh my gosh.
We were in Brooks Brothers, and I was like, "Oh, there's handkerchiefs."
I mean, like, I'm talking about old school. I love it. It's like chivalry right there. Which is just so much fun. It's like, there's something elegant. I was with my friends this past weekend. They're European. And they have, the culture is just very more.
It is definitely more elegant than.
Formal. They have like tea time and they do all this other stuff. Like her family is very into the like aesthetics of things. And like they would probably have a handkerchief. And I was like, there's something just nice about that. Right? Like it's, my mom her thing is tissues. She has to have tissues everywhere in the house, like tissue boxes, because growing up, they never had tissues. Oh. So her thing is like, she feels so luxurious if she has tissues. So there's tissues boxes, tissue boxes everywhere all over the house.
Wow.
It drives me like, I'm like, Mom, oh my gosh, do we really have to have like 5 in the same room?
Yeah.
She's like, I just want them easy access. So just in case I need it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But everybody has their comforts and stuff, but the elegance of a handkerchief is just so nice.
I like the handkerchiefs, and I love like the tea time. Like I love the traditional elegant stuff. Like I really like it. So probably when we redo the setup, there's gonna be probably a little bit more of that. Like it's so regal.
I like it. That's totally you. Yeah. That's the next phase.
Yeah.
The next path. The next pivot.
Next rebranding.
Yeah. And we all circled back to the same.
The dots.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, Arielle, this was fantastic. I guess it was therapy for both of us.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I always get so much out of a conversation, and this is what I love.
Yeah.
And this is what I feel like people should have more of. Have the conversations, learn from them, experience, and you get something out, and then it'll take you to the next place. And I know I'll be having lots of thoughts after this one of just like, oh, how that changed me, right?
Yeah.
Because we're constantly changing our patterns in ourselves.
Yeah.
So good.
So Arielle.
Yes.
My favorite question of the show.
Oh.
So
what's my favorite ice cream? No, I'm just kidding. Don't ask me that one. That's a hard one. I can talk about all the other stuff, but that's hard.
Looking back at everything you've learned over your life, what are the 3 top most pivotal points or pieces of advice that you would give to those who are listening?
Okay. So the first one that just popped into my head that has always stuck with me is I had a teacher, like in college. This is the only thing I learned out of college. College just was not for me. I did it, pat on the back, that's it. I'm out. But my teacher said to me, he goes, always carry a business card with you. A business card, it's who you know, not what you know. But he said, you create opportunities by giving your business card out to people. and it's really who you know. And that's all. Like that was a first class, and that was, or not first class, but it was the first class in that series, section or whatever they're called. I've been out of college, I guess, too long because I can't remember the semester, that's the word. But like, that's what he said. And I was like, okay. And I didn't make a business card. And a couple, classes later, he's like, so who made a business card? Who did it? And like one or two people, and the whole like 200 people like raised their hand.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, you guys will succeed in life. You guys will be the ones that move forward. And to this day, I totally agree with that, because it is who you know, and it is connecting, and it's making having those conversations, and not just handing your business card to somebody, but like, hey, let's continue this conversation. And that's really what you're doing with a business card. Or now the taps or whatever, but the taps kind of get lost in, I still think a business card is nice. I think it's good to hold something.
That's how I met you, honestly.
Did I give you a business card?
No, but a series of events, the ripple effect.
Oh yeah.
It was through a business card.
Yeah. So like by
by
giving your business card and having that, and it's a visual thing for somebody to really look at and touch. It's a textile thing. Like there's a lot to business cards, and I know they are fading, but I still think it's an old school thing that needs to stay present.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I would really say, like a piece of advice, and I appreciate from that teacher. And then another person that I also like, a mentor of mine, he he represents another physical therapy and medical practice. And we met in a networking meeting, and he said to me, like, oh, what do you do? And I said, oh, this. And I could see he's a bigger company, right? So I'm this like little dog, and he's the big dog. And I'm like, he's going to eat me alive in this networking group. And like, this is just going to be, annoyed, right? Like, I can't have my own, right? And he said to me, he goes, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. I love this, that we could work together. I was like, you want to work together? Like, I've been trying to do this with other people, and I got shot down.
Wow.
And he was like, yeah, like you're in an area that we're not. So we could pass you clients that like would like to come to us, but it's too far to drive. So like, let's work together. And I was like, this is fantastic.
Wow.
And I love that. And that's really like what sparked my talk about reassurance, right? What you said, like when you have this idea and then somebody else says something, and you're like, okay, so it is a collaboration.
Yeah.
And I totally still stand by that. Like collaborate with your peers, collaborate with others. And it's amazing what comes out of it.
Yeah.
And the opportunities now him and I have created for each other, and we've worked together, and people are like, so many people have come up to us and they're like, so why are you working with that person? Like, isn't that your competition? And I was like, absolutely not. Like on paper, yes. But like when you actually bring, dive into it, not at all. We're working together, and we're helping so many others, and they can't see every patient, right? We can't see every patient. So it's great to be able to have like a sister company or whatever, cousin, we want to call it, to be able to refer to and to work with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my third, okay, this is fun. Oh my gosh. Okay. The third, I don't know. I mean, I guess I would just say like, keep tapping into like, being here present and being in the now, and have fun with whatever you do. Because that's really what life is about. We're on this earth for a very short amount of time. It started before us. It's going to continue on after us. And the more we can just stay present with what we're doing, the more we don't miss out on all these amazing moments. And then we look back and we're like, oh, I should have, or I could have.
Yeah.
Instead, you look back and like, that was really cool. Yeah. That was an awesome time in my life. And I'm so grateful I lived it, and I lived every moment of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
those are my three things.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it so much.
Thank you for having me. This is fantastic.
And where can people find you?
Okay. So I have become very active on Instagram since I've found that is the place to be and the hangout. So I am active on Instagram under Arielle.Leavitt. And then also you can reach out to me on the Ripple app. Join the Ripple app. It's on the iOS store, Apple store, and the Google Play store.
Oh, so you got it on the...
Oh, it is official.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh my God, wonderful. Okay, I'm going to definitely download it.
This is big news. I know before it was like on the you had to go to the website, the thing, and you know, now it's like, and this is the whole thing about beta testing, right? Like I beta tested, it seemed to like really start taking off more and more. And I was like, oh my gosh. People were like, well, I want it on the App Store. I'm not going to join you until it's on the App Store. And I was like, okay, cool. Great. Like I can solve that problem.
Yeah.
And like you want it. So great. I'll help you figure that out.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So,
I'm going to download it. Yes.
Yeah. So it's on the App Store. So you can find it on there and then you can reach out to me. I would love that. But it's really a tool. I created it. I'm just going to talk about this very quickly.
Yeah.
But I created it because I do a lot of networking. And I started talking to other people that do a lot of networking and they started telling me about their problems. Like I was like, I started sharing my problems and seeing if they had a solution. They didn't. Like I was like, I met somebody at an event and I can't remember where I met them. I mean, I can't remember like I threw away their business card, but I know I met them at this event. Like, do you have their contact? And I had to ask somebody else. And then like people kind of get annoyed a little bit because it's like an extra step they have to do. Be like, oh yeah, I have that person's contact. Let me share it with you. But like, you know, it can be annoying to ask somebody else. So like if you go to an event now, like if you meet somebody there that you don't need to necessarily do anything with or talk to them or whatever it may be until maybe a couple months later, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I want to introduce that person to so-and-so, or I totally need their air conditioning services now. And I love talking to them and I didn't need it at that time.
Yeah.
And so you can go back and start talking to them and have that also. And then also there's a way on there where like, let's say I want to introduce you to another person and I, you know, like instead of putting you guys in a group chat or putting you guys in an email or a text message or whoever wants what, because everybody wants something different and things get lost in email and even text feels stressful because then you're like, I have to respond to them right away. And then you have to like, for me, I'm going to go into this for just 2 seconds. This is my little tangent moment. But, you know, when you put two people in group text, they start talking and then your phone keeps lighting up. And then you're like, okay, please remove me out. And then they remove you, you know, like they start taking it off. But then they have to save that person in their contacts and then they have to start a whole new chat. And it's like, it's time consuming. And sometimes you don't necessarily maybe feel like you want that lead or that contact in your phone, which is okay.
Yeah.
And so now you can have it all in this in Ripple and you can have your chats there. You can then decide if you want to take it offline or off the app. Yeah. Ooh, it's like it's like dating. You know, we're moving off the app now, like with my little accent that I just created there. You know, but then you can decide to move it off. And then that's the beauty of it. And if you don't, and it also remembers like kind of like when you met somebody, right? Yeah. So because that's also another thing is like when you hit connect and they go into your database, it goes in chronological order, which is really also fun. Yeah. So there's different. It's kind of like a CRM mixed with a app thing, whatever. I don't know what it's called. Yeah. But it's not as like it's not like people say like, well, why isn't it similar to LinkedIn? And it is similar, but LinkedIn is
a little different.
It is, and a lot of people use it for recruiting, which is wonderful. This is more for like, hey, you're vouching for somebody. When you're making these introductions, you know, you've had that conversation with somebody, you want to introduce them to the next person and you want them to do business together or have a great conversation that will lead them to what they need to do next.
Yeah.
So that is why I created it. But anyways, so I hope to see you all on Ripple.
Yes. I'm definitely going to download it. I'm so happy it's on the App Store. Like, this is fantastic. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is so fantastic.
Thank you so much for being on my show. I love it so much.